Best advice for anyone interested in game development using C++. This is an article on LinkedIn, but the original comment actually is from Reddit, and there was a person, and you know, we get this all the time. How should I start learning C++ for game development? I think the best way to start learning C++ game development is to make a game. You set up a very basic project. You don't overcomplicate things. You just do something. That's my opinion on making or getting into game development as fast as possible and having the most amount of fun, because there are so many rules that you might want to learn before you even get started, and that can be overwhelming. So the original question was on Reddit, and so we're gonna read that too, but maybe here on LinkedIn. This is, by the way, from a looks like engineer at Google. Shilpi Roy thinks that this is the best advice. So what do you guys think? What do you think is the best way to get starting? For me personally, I learned web dev in school, and now I'm learning C, so maybe doing a project. A project, in my opinion, is the best thing that you can do in order to learn something like C++ or any other language, yes. Because ultimately, let's say you want to learn C++. You want to learn arrays, you want to learn maybe vectors, pointers, maybe smart pointers. You want to learn how the stack works. Maybe you want to learn what scoping is. So what is the best way to do that? An array of projectiles is learning how to do an array. Why do you need projectiles? Well, you're making a game, you need to shoot projectiles, maybe arrows. Now you already know how to do an arrow or maybe a vector. It's up to you, right? Then you learn these two concepts while you are implementing a feature in your game. And the same way when you want to do maybe like a local animation of a menu. Let's say you open up the menu and then it pops in and out. You can do that using a static variable on your stack. Or it's not on your stack, but it's locally scoped inside of a function. That function is only responsible for scaling the menu, and then you can just use that timer. You don't have to store that timer somewhere else. You learn these concepts by making a game. Stuff like that. But anyways, let's not make this too long, because that could be like 10 years. We could talk about this for 10 years. Let's see here. How does this come to be? So there was a person 6 years ago that asked, how should I start learning C++ for game development? And I did make a video on that. You guys really liked that video, which is making a game in Raylib and in C. It's basically 1 hour, a bit longer than that, to make an entire game in Raylib and C++. And you're good to go. You have your first game done. Now you can move on and make your next game. And so yeah, this is probably a guy who was at the same point that many of you guys are, and me too, 4 years ago as well. And so that's a valid question to have. I started Unity 2 years ago. Yeah, I've been using Unity before I started learning C++ as well, but I never got anywhere in the engine. Maybe it was just experience. I'm pretty sure I would get somewhere today, but I never really got anywhere meaningful with the engine. And as I can see in game development, C++ is kind of the next level in game programming. Well, it's used a lot. That's why. There's a lot of game studios that are shying away from this now because they're losing talent. But it's still the majority of games, good games, big games, are written in C++. Just because you have more control. And also, in my opinion, humble opinion, I think it's the best programming language out there. C like C++. It's the best programming language out there. Yeah. Yes. Hell no. Yes. You can fight me. You can fight me. Okay, bro? It's the best. I love it. I wouldn't change anything other than locally scoped functions. GD script. Please. You can't even debug that properly. Anyways, so it is widely used in Unreal Engine 4. Yeah, but that's their own C++ version. But maybe this guy doesn't know. And written in game engines. Yeah, so where should I start to learn if I have some knowledge of programming and very little of C++? In my opinion, the best place is to do a Google tutorial, like a YouTube tutorial. The free code camp tutorial is fine. You just get the basics. You want to get the basics of the language before making something. Let's see here. Should I take a tutorial of creating a game engine or maybe start with Unreal Engine 4? In my opinion, you should do both and just explore both things. But here's the advice that seems to be really good. I've worked in C++ in video games for over 20 years. Damn, who's this guy? And here are my suggestions. You want to spend as much time in C++ learning mode as possible, not learning Unreal Engine. Yeah, so that's the thing. Unreal Engine has their own C++ code, so it's not... Well, it is C++, but not really. It is basically they have taken C++ and they made their own wrappers, their own bundles of C++ features and called them an Unreal Engine feature, essentially. And so you're not interfacing with C++ directly, but with their build of C++, with their what they came up with by shuffling together a bunch of things from C++. Or look at this. Start with a simple libSDL2 example that renders sprites and C++ FYI, what is this? IFI, the sprite management code from this learn. Wait, so I don't understand how this is, how someone reads this. Start with a simple SDL2 example. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Either SDL2 or Raylib. One of the two. Because they offer you everything you want, from sound to window opening to input to rendering, that you would like to have in a game. And, you know, texture rendering and stuff like that too. And you don't have to worry about how that is done in the very beginning, because you can then focus on making your game. And you can always, if you want to, go deeper. And that's the cool thing. If you want to do your own renderer, you can. You don't have to call SDL2's rendering functions. You just call your own. Doesn't Raylib have it all though? What would be the advantages of SDL versus Raylib? I don't think there are many advantages. I'm pretty sure someone that knows these libraries in and out can tell you more. But what I can tell you is that both are designed to get you started to make games in C++ as fast as possible. And so, and even at other applications, you could do something, for example, in Raylib or in SDL2, you could do something like this. An entire application like Asprite. You don't have to use OpenGL or something else. You can just make Asprite and Raylib. That's really cool, isn't it? And then you can sell that if you want, if that's what you want to do. If you don't want to make a game, right? Because Asprite, you can see here, is basically a fully functional pixel art looking window, and it's their own stuff in here. It's really cool. Let's see here. So start with a simple Raylib or SDL2 example that renders sprites. And then C++ifying the sprite management code from this learn. Maybe C++ify means OOPify? I don't know. It's difficult to say. Cakez, I respect your decision to grind and build stuff from the ground up. But what's the reasoning behind not using something like Unreal Engine, Godot or CryEngine or Unity? Well, because I tried using those first and I didn't manage to get anywhere, and I was not having as much fun as I'm having now. And so for me, the freedom of using C++ overweighs the advantages of getting started faster in Unity or any of these other engines, because I'm having a lot more fun and I'm actually sticking with it, instead of just making something for a couple of days, maybe weeks, and then quitting because ultimately I lose interest. And so for me, C++ means the future, essentially. For me, it means that in the future, I will be more valuable as a programmer, game designer, or whatever, simply because I'm learning how to solve all of these different problems, and I can use that in the future to push me forward. I would be able to make games in Unity and Unreal Engine and of those engines too, but I wouldn't feel as comfortable or as valuable as I am with C++ right now. And so that's ultimately how I see it. I see it I don't think in terms of days or weeks or months. I think in terms of years. Not like 1 year or 2 years, like 5 years, 6 years down the line. When this stuff that I'm learning now is really important. When that will help me a lot. I'm thinking in terms of lifetime, yeah. So basically trying to waste as little time as possible by soaking up as much as I can. Well, I still can. Is it better than Odin? I don't think so. Maybe Odin is better than C++ and C even. Right, I was having a blast in Odin, but it's definitely not as popular. I think Odin's main weak point is that it's not that popular. And so you want to do something in Odin, you don't have as much support than if you do something in C or C++, because there's many more people that use this. And maybe someone has already had the problem. And C++ is more spread out than Odin as well. Yeah, when it comes to job opportunities. Gingerbill will personally support you. Yeah, Gingerbill was on our stream. Yeah, he commented on the video as well. My latest video. It's really cool. It's a really cool dude. And he's really smart. But yeah, anyways, let's move on. So I would assume that basically learning C++ while using the renderer sprite system or something. It's difficult to say what it means by that. But okay, let's just skip over this. And so from this learn, so basically you learn memory management, raw, weak and shared pointers. Then classes, inheritance, abstraction, private, public, protected. Any person that wants to learn C++ should learn this at least once. And you can learn that by making a project. I made a project in the very beginning that is a 3D Vulkan engine where I tried to run around in the world, and I loaded the typical sponsor scene. That was very helpful because I could learn these concepts in there. I'm not saying that I use them now, but it was very helpful to learn these. The standard library, like a vector, list, string, algorithm, exactly. Like algorithm is really cool. You can use sort. I have used that actually a lot in my program as well, especially for 2D renderers, where you want to learn how to, where you want to sort sprites in the correct layer. And so you have transparent sprites, you want to sort them. Algorithm can help there a lot. I think it's algorithm, pretty sure it is. STD sort is in there. And then other stuff too, of course. Then try to make a simple arcade game like Asteroids, Pac-Man, Space Invaders. Maybe even, what is it called? What is this called, guys? Pong. Maybe even a game like Pong. When I finished my first game, and that was Pong, I felt so good about myself. And I felt like I could achieve anything. I thought to myself that I could make a game in 6 months. You know, a simple tower defense game like Bloons with, you know, attacks and weapons and upgrades and placing units not on the road but beside the road and, you know, having collision detection with projectiles. You know, very simple basic stuff, right? In 6 months. And so, I'm currently 3 years into the project. So that worked out very well. But the boost of confidence is still there from my first game, from my Pong game. And that's awesome. So making a small game is always the best, especially for your first. And from this learn C++ project management, multiple files. Okay, I mean, I learned that too. I have a couple of files in my game as well. You know, so I have like a main CPP file. That's right here. And then I have a game CPP file. So that's like 2 files already. Okay. The main CPP file has 500 lines of code. I think that's reasonable. And then the game, the game is a little bit big, you know, like it's a couple of lines of code, you know. Oh, we're almost at 27,000 lines of code. Damn. Yeah, guys, I also have an asset file, okay? Which is where I load all of the assets and, you know, the atlas positions and stuff like that. I do know that you can do this programming-wise. I know that. I type it out anyways. But yes, so I do have some files. Keep everything in one file, it's more manageable that way. Well, if you have everything in one file, you know, you don't have to open up another file to search for something because you're already in the right file. Think about it, okay? So like, let that sink in for a second, okay? You're already in the correct file every time you try to search something. Think about it, okay? The next time you have to go into a folder, and then into a subfolder, and then into the correct file in that folder, and then search in that file. I've already searched the term, and I already found it. Just saying, huge brain move. Yes, 100%. Okay, so project management, yes. And then how to debug. Oh man, this is important. Breakpoints, watch points, and printing. Exactly. So basically you learn all of this. Like you don't even have to, like the cool thing is, right? This list right here that he's typing out. You know what the cool thing is about this? When you're making a game in C++, a simple project, you want to do a small game like Pong or Pac-Man or whatever. You're gonna do these things automatically because they come up. You're gonna write a function, the function behaves incorrectly, you will set a breakpoint there to learn to debug this, because you need to figure out what's going on. I never debug my code, maybe because you don't program. How to, let's see, and then the next thing would be how to manage basic I/O by wrapping some of the standard library code from the basic project. Cakez is the creator of the OFP, one file per project. True. Yes. Guys, the moment I release my game and it is remotely successful, all of these people saying that my one file project, whatever, is bad, they will all disappear. Like, so how many people tell the Undertale guy that he should have done better job programming? Let me hear them. Like, where's the people telling him? I don't hear them. All I can see is, man, this guy made a good game. Holy shit, look at him. Me? Okay, bro. Do you have a better game than him? If not, then it doesn't matter. I only program directly in RAM. Files are for losers. We will not disappear. We will just say that you did an amazing game in N years when you could have done it in N divided by 2. If it had 2 files, it's... Okay, bro. So you mean the more files you have, the faster you are in programming? Is that what people actually think? That's not true, by the way, okay? That's wrong. Okay, let's move on here. So after we have done this, the file loading, which is, by the way, something that you have to do when you want to have loading and saving in your game, of course. Then we add sound. Usually sound is something that comes very late in the project. I think people usually don't spend any time on this because they first program the game. At least that's what I do, and I'm pretty sure many of you do that too. For those of you who want to know, Vampire Survivors, we can look at this, right? Vampire Survivors on itch. It came out there first. It doesn't have many sound effects. You guys remember when you open up a chest and it's like... Look at this. Listen to the sound of Vampire Survivors. This is the very first, like, really good version of the game. No sound here. Like... It's completely mute. You see this? Look. Start. We have something here. Let's get level up here really quickly. We're gonna play good here. Boop. Here we go. One more. Boom. And then this guy too. Should be one more. Yeah, see? Nothing. No sound effect. Absolutely nothing. And so these sound effects, usually when you're making a game, they come in much later. Yeah, anyways, let's move on. Learn about singletons next. Singletons, right? Like, yeah, I guess you learn about singletons when you make something. Usually I see this in the context of Unity. How many of you have seen this in the context of Unity? So you have like a game controller or a game manager. Singletons are for Java devs. I love singletons. Like, what is a singleton? It's just a bunch of functions, in my opinion. And also, like, a singleton, does it hold state? If it holds state, then it's just a game state. It's just a state of data or like a collection of data. And then functions operate on that data. That's how I see it. So why would we need like a singleton for that? Fancy name for a struct? Yeah, kinda right. For me, that's a fancy name for, let's say, a global struct. Static global struct, something like that. Collection of data. Anyways, advanced. Try and compile your code in a new platform. From this you'll learn. Yeah, so that's something you do after you've done your project. And then you try to compile. Or, like, usually what I would do is, let's say you make a game like Pong for one platform, let's say Windows, which would be the majority of people. That's essentially how I did it. So, for example, I have a Celeste clone tutorial on YouTube. What we did is we made a very simple window opening loop on Windows, and then we took that and tried to do the same thing on Linux. And so now we have the same code that works both on Linux and on Windows, where we can just open up a window. But usually when you use SDL2, if you work with a compiler like Clang or GCC, that would just work. You won't really have to do much. So this is where CMake will come in for usually, or you try to basically do your own build system for both of these platforms. And then C++ cross-platform isn't exactly the same, but it mostly is. Yeah, so basically, to sum it up, we made a very simple project in C++ for Windows, and then we used the same setup on Linux to see if there's differences. And that was really cool. It took us like 1 or 2 days, and we had a working version on Windows and and we had a very... Ow! Stop! And we had a working version both on Linux and on Windows, and that was really cool. Okay, libSDL is old, but it's the standard abstraction. Do not be tempted to wrap SDL all up in C++ and hide it. It's a waste of your time. True. So what I said in the beginning, how you should make a wrapper for SDL2, is kind of stupid if it's your first game. Yes, so you probably won't be exchanging SDL2, so making a wrapper around it is a waste of time. Focus purely on adding game functionality using C++. Yeah, making the game. Just copying opinions? No, it's not copying opinions. it is something that this stuff right here makes sense, where you have to build your own interface, right? So basically what I explained was, if you want to make a game and you want to call down directly to SDL2, that works for the first couple of games, but maybe you want to exchange SDL2 in the future and use something else, then you can make your own interface, call your own functions, and then it's easier for you to exchange SDL2 in the future for something else. But he is right here, it is wasting your time if it's your first game. That's true. Because your focus should be, if you want to make a game, your focus should be on the game. That's the important part. It's not a waste of time if you know you want to do that in the future, but you don't know when you're starting. That's the point. On each platform, stick with the most popular tools. Visual Studio, Xcode, etc. Do not get into the wars that idiots have on each platform. You need the widest possible use so your questions will be answered quickly. Exactly. So I got that question too. He told me that I don't need Visual Studio on Windows. You can just use GCC and some other code editor for Windows, and then that would work on other platforms too. But that's not the most popular choice. Your choice on Windows usually is Visual Studio. That's the first thing that everyone uses. And so he's smart, because that's basically taking away a question that, like, what do I use? Visual Studio Code. Do I use Visual Studio? Do I use Notepad++? Sea Lion, Eclipse. All of these editors, right? Using the most common one is the best, because then you have the most, what is that? The widest possible use. So the questions will be answered quickly, yes. At the start, 50% of your problems will be about the compiler and not doing what you expect. This is normal, true. And you will not understand the compiler questions, by the way. No, sorry. I hate it when I misspeak my words. So basically what you will not understand is the compiler errors. They will be like alien words to you. How many of you got the unresolved symbol and didn't understand what that means? It usually says unresolved symbol. That's linker, not compiler. Yeah, but do you know that when you're starting C++? You get like an unresolved symbol, and then it's like, wait, what does that mean? Unresolved symbol? And then you have to like read further down the line to find the function that it's actually referencing. No. You guys are so lying. It's insane. You are lying. Sounds like a skill issue. Yeah, okay. So these guys are lying. It is normal to get that, to not understand what that means. It basically means there's a function definition somewhere, but I don't have the code. I don't know where the code is. The code is not here. That's basically what it says. And it says unresolved symbol, which I think is very misleading. No, not misleading, which I think is very confusing. I came out the womb coding. Okay, bro. Let's stop here. It's not a compiler bug. It's your code. Step through the debugger. Yeah, the compiler is not wrong. That's true. I remember the times when I thought the compiler was wrong. Actually, the compiler was wrong one time. The compiler was wrong one time. On a release build, it would put the, the call by value function parameters. It would not copy that value correctly onto the stack of the function. And therefore, my UI elements would not align properly. They would align to 0. And that was actually a compiler bug. That was the first time. And I wasn't the only person that had this, by the way. For those of you who know TCAP, he had the same problem. You can ask him. He literally got the same problem as me. That was a compiler bug. So we did find one, but there was one bug in like 4 years. No, that was actually a compiler bug. Once you've made a very rudimentary game, well done. You've got further than 90% of people, yes. 90% of people, that's the craziest thing. They don't even want to sit down for 1 to 2 hours to make a game. But they're talking about making a game. You shouldn't be that. You should just do it. You shouldn't talk. You should just do. Don't talk. I hate when people do that. They just talk and talk. Yeah, then why don't you do it? There's always something. There's always something wrong that doesn't work. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, I have kids. Oh, I can't do it. No, it's too much work because then I can't focus on that. Like, so stupid. I feel attacked. I had my baby to get to bed. I have a baby too, bro. You know, I can do it too. You can do it too, bruh. Now try and refactor the code so that it is an engine. By this I mean that its general purpose and you can run multiple types of games. No. He destroyed this. So this is what I wouldn't do. This is like what he wants to say here is a little bit misleading, I think. So let's say he made a game. You made a game, right? And you have a system where you can move the player, and you really like that system. That is a player movement system. You can reuse that system. Or let's say you have a very cool system to load and save your game. Maybe even using different versions. And it's not too much work to update that save state in future releases because you add more data to the save state. That system is something that you can reuse in your next game. But I wouldn't generate an engine so that I can make a new game. I would keep like a framework, which is a collection of systems that work together. That could be a library for your game, that could be certain systems, and then reuse those systems to make another game. I would not spend too much time on making something generic, because every game that you're going to make is specific. It has specific needs, and those needs need to be met and will change between games. Because every game, in a way, is different. And unless you're making always the same game, you don't need to do that. Yeah, you would copy over the code, but you would do something like this. For example, let's go to the schnitzel lib here. You would do something like this. You build a library of, let's say you make your own array. We made our own array. You have like some functions that you want to use, some logging stuff that you want to do. And you know, basic perceived loudness. This is, by the way, for those of you who are wondering, this is for volume sliders in the game. You know, loudness sliders. Look at this, right? That's not a linear function. There's a lot of stuff that you can read online on that. We have also get log volume. There's another function for that. Like, these functions can be very helpful to have, and then maybe some IDs, stuff like this. Stuff that you would probably reuse between games. Anyways, I think this is awesome. Let's read some of the comments. Good luck. Yeah, let's read some of the comments. I want to read them from LinkedIn here. There's one big one. And maybe there's some more additional information from this thunderstorm survivor. Okay, whatever that means. What does that mean? What is LinkedIn? Like, I'm not on LinkedIn, but it seems like a weird place. Huh? So basically, was there like a thunderstorm somewhere? And he's a... whatever. Let's just not get into this. Okay? You can also do some legendary work in the game dev industry with knowing some basics on the technical side, like coding shaders, libs. Just remember, there are some seriously good mathematicians out there who can do cooler stuff than must with paper and pencil and a little bit of code. I've seen people do insane particle formations in physics with what seems like simple code. It was the mathematics though. I've been a dev for a while and have been getting back into my paperback math books. Back into my paperback math books. Without math, none of this would exist. Binary is a form of math. Why is this guy so obsessed about math, bro? It's crazy. So you can use easing functions. For those of you, I have this sword animation here. Look at this. This is done purely with code. But he's making it sound like that's some crazy thing. It's not. This is just an easing function. You don't really need math. Yeah, you don't. So basically, this is a slice animation here that I made completely using code. None of this is drawn at all. It builds vertices on the fly to build like this attack Schweif in English, whatever that's called. And yeah, it animates the weapon. It flips it correctly, left and right. And you can do the same thing with bows. I have a bow animation for that too. Boom. But you don't need crazy math skills for this. It's basically just easing functions. And easing functions, you go here. Easings.net. And then you use those. You take a look at this. Ease in sign. Okay, I like that. Scroll down here. This is the function. Copy that. Put it into your game. Done. You don't need math skills for this. You need copy-paste skills. Okay? That's simple. Anyways, yeah, let's... I think he's a bit on the wrong track here. C++ is badass, though. I'll never argue the speed. Being down to the metal and flame. What is LinkedIn? Is LinkedIn just a weird place, guys? Like, game engine devs? Get good at coding, man. You're gonna be in some deep analysis. Hey? What am I I reading here? Isn't this like a website where you advertise LinkedIn is fake? LinkedIn is a weird place? Yeah, it looks weird to me. Game designers, in quotation marks. Focus on the style, philosophy. What's going to make your game not just an hour fun, but an experience people talk about? Man, this guy is deep. Game developers, if you're indie, stack some heads up. I'm for a ride. You will need to understand many things to feel comfortable implementing ideas without so many personal knowledge constraints. Damn. Tech artist, learn your way around. Design workflows people fall in love with. And automate like a madman. Also, learn the GPU and understand rendering and animation. More hardcore developers, engineering team member, get good at code. Structures, hardware, low-level stuff. Don't forget some nav. What's this guy talking about, man? Maybe we need to read LinkedIn a little bit more. That's an interesting place. That's a top comment or something? Is that like the first or something? Yeah, so Thunderstorm Survivor is right, okay? Learn math, essentially. Anyways, good article. Best stuff here. Apart from the last part, just keep the stuff that you want to keep for the next game and then just move on, make your next game, and don't spend too much time trying to make generic things. Because this is where most of your code will fail if you try to make it too generic. Because it's always specific. You create unique games by making something specific. And something specific is also more fun, in my opinion. Because you're exploring, you know, you're making something new. That's cool.